This meeting of the RTM will come to order. It's Wednesday, June 14th, 2017, 7:30 p.m. Groton Senior Center. Welcome back, everybody. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Representative Adams? Bailey?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Burrell? Pen's not working. There we go. Bauer? Burgos? Casper? Sini?
Here.
Dean Shinbrot?
Here.
Evans? Frickman? Garcia? Gilly?
Here.
Hubbard? Kent? Longino? Laughlin? Marr? Marley? Massett?
Here.
McCabe?
Here.
McDermott?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Nault?
Here.
Nugent? Aubry? Parker?
Here.
Pasqualini? Powers?
Here.
Quinn?
Here.
Sleeker Hersant?
Here.
Steinford? Irma Streeter?
Here.
Jim Streeter? Swindell? Wagner? Watrous?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
Williams? Wilson?
Here.
And Newsom. 24. 24.
We have 24 members present. I declare a quorum. Well, we all please rise for a moment of silence and a special Flag Day Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business tonight is approval of our May 1st, 2017 annual budget session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Wilson?
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the May 1st, 2017 annual budget meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
For the budget?
For the budget session? This,
Never mind. I'll vote for it.
motion carries unanimously, 24-0-0. Our second order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from the May 10th regular, May 10th, 2017 regular RTM meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the May 10th RTM meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the May 10th, 2017 meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, 24-0-0. Citizens petitions. This is the portion of the RTM agenda where the RTM welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentation should be limited to matters pertinent to Groton. The moderator or members through the moderator shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator and/or by the town manager. Citizens should make their presentations from the lectern and state their name and address for the record. Nobody signed up. Is there anybody here tonight that wishes to make a citizen's petition? Seeing none, we will move on. Reception and communications. Following members let us know they weren't going to be able to make it tonight. Representatives Nugent, Marr, Aubry, Wagner, Marley, and Steinford. Report of the town manager.
Thank you. Hopefully, all of you've had a chance to pick up the newsletter off to the side. Financial statement, fund balance as of May 31st is approximately $9.9 million, which is equivalent to 8.1% of the FYE 2017 general fund adopted budget. As you are aware, our stated objective is to maintain a minimum of 7.75%. General contingency was budgeted for FYE 2017 at $425,000. Current balance is a little bit over $295,000. To date, there's been $129,000, essentially $130,000 in transfers approved. There's a pending transfer that the RTM will be considering later on this evening. Our annual fourth quarter transfers in the amount of $276,000, and also the council recently approved $8,100 for AFSCME, which is a union group, retro wages. That's under $10,000 and will not be coming to the RTM. And then lastly, the capital reserve fund balance as of May 31st is $10.7 million. Couple of things I just want to highlight. We're essentially done with the LED streetlight conversion project. There were a couple of loose ends that we've recently finished. So all of the streetlights in the Eversource franchise area, so on the east side of town, have been converted to LED. In addition, many of the parking lot lights and exterior wall-mounted lights have also, in town buildings, have been also converted to LEDs. A couple items just to highlight. We are in the process of updating and revamping the town's economic development website. There's a little bit of information in there concerning that. Also, a fun event that you may want to consider, and I believe there were some flyers out on some of the tables. Club 55, which is associated with the Senior Center, on June 22nd will be having their annual Strawberry Festival dinner and basket raffles, and I believe the raffle baskets are outside the door. Dinner is pot roast and grilled chicken, and $10 for members and $15 for non-members. Tonight was the kickoff, and hopefully a couple of you were able to attend, was the kickoff for the 15th annual One Book, One Region event that libraries throughout the region, and certainly our library participates in. This evening's event was over at the Cure Building over in the city of Groton on the Pfizer campus. There will be a series of events throughout the next couple of months that we'll keep you updated on, and there's a very nice write-up that Betty Ann had put together for the weekly status report. A couple of upcoming events or updates. You do have in your packet the economic development update for May from Planning and Development Services. There is a public information meeting that Planning and Development will be sponsoring concerning the Mystic Education Center, the Mystic Oral School, as some know it by, on June 22nd at 5:30 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex. As you may be aware, the town was successful in securing a grant from the State Department of Economic Development to help market that property, and I'm glad to report that we've had a fair number of inquiries as a result of those initial marketing efforts, and the intent of the workshop on the 22nd is to engage residents within the area and others throughout the town as to what their interest would be in terms of the reuse of that facility. Some of you may have seen in the newspaper that the Groton New London area was one of the recipients of the Connecticut Next implementation grant, around $700,000. That's an item that a number of folks in the region worked on, both town and city employees, along with the City of New London, Cure, and Spark Maker Place over in New London. We were one of 4 regions that were selected to receive initial grant funding. Also, we're in the midst of, even though summer just feels like it started, or even spring just showed up, we are in the midst of our paving season, and we will be starting repaving on June 26th of the Nomenclature Road. And the neighbors have been notified. And lastly, I do want to point out that the Southeastern Connecticut Housing Alliance, commonly referred to as SACHA, is once again sponsoring an annual tour of some affordable housing projects. The spotlight this year is on Stonington. There's a number of projects that will be toured, and that's on June 28th at 10 a.m. It's open to the public. You just need to RSVP so that they have a head count for lunch. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions for the town manager? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To the town manager, there was a big, when we heard what the the capital reserve balance was, because you have 1.8 million here and you said 10.7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which one is?
It's 1.8.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I don't know what I was looking at.
That was why the big inhale.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the town manager?
If I could, I think the
Sure.
10.7 came from the line above, which is, it's only $10,700, so I apologize for that. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention, that's all.
Check marking that one.
And you were.
Yes.
Next item is report from the superintendent. Is anybody here to speak from the Board of Ed? Nope. Liaison reports. Anybody have any liaison reports they would like to make? Moving right along. Committee reports. Finance, Chairman Nault.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. RTM Finance Committee met tonight. Members present were myself, Representative Powers, Gilly, and Quinn. Representatives Marr, Marley, and Pasqualini had all told me that they were not going to be able to make it. I declared a quorum at 6:46 p.m. Referral 2017-0095, fiscal year 2017 fourth quarter transfers was brought up. I read the referral, and then I moved approval of referral 2017-0095. Representative Quinn seconded. The referral has to do with a number of transfers from contingency to various town budget accounts. Should I read that now, or should I read it when I move that?
You had discussion during the meeting?
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead and-
meeting discussion followed moving and seconding the referral. I was, a number of the items talk about retirees and why we needed money to move money to certain accounts because of retirees, and I was kind of curious as to why it costs money when people retire, because I was kind of in my own mind thinking that must be a cost savings. But actually there's people that have saved up various benefits that get paid out upon retirement, so there is actually a one-time cost for most people that retire. And then I asked, if you look at the referral, it doesn't say what the contingency balance was, so I asked about that. Town manager reported that that was $295,000, or $295 and $91, which is good because that's slightly above what they're asking for the transfer. And then once the contingency money is approved for transfer, the balance in contingency will be $10,714. One of the items is for miscellaneous legal costs. Representative Powers asked about what those legal costs were, and the town manager reported that there's just a bunch of legal costs always in the hopper that are hard to predict, and this was, what we needed to do to fund legal things. Some of the claims that are starting up are the revaluation claims with people putting in disputing the change to their property valuation, and that's probably going to grow over time. There was no further discussions. We brought the referral to a vote, and it passed 4 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining. And then I moved to adjourn the meeting. Representative Powers seconded, and we approved that 4 to 0 to 0, and the meeting adjourned at 6:53 p.m.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 14th, 2017 RTM Finance Committee meeting minutes. Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll vote on the June 14th, 2017 RTM Finance Committee meeting minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Go ahead. Make a motion for,
He has to read he or should read
okay. You want me to read?
No, he should.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and read the motion first.
Okay. So am I moving?
No,
Read it.
It's already been done.
go ahead and read it and then move it.
Okay, I got it. Okay, referral 2017-0095, fiscal year 2017 fourth quarter transfers. Whereas the town charter provides for supplemental appropriations to adopted budgets and transfers from the contingency function during the year. Whereas the town charter also provides for the transfer of funds from one departmental function to another departmental function during the last 3 months of the fiscal year. And whereas transfers are necessary and represent unforeseen or unexpected expenditures at the time the fiscal year 2017 budget was adopted, now therefore be it resolved that transfers totaling $276,195 be transferred from contingency account number 1074 to the following general fund departments functions, and transfers of $10,000 or more are referred to the RTM for approval. First is legal services, $89,500 for costs associated with miscellaneous litigation. Human resources, $21,987 for retirement of long-term employee. Insurance and claims, $26,598 for deductibles for insurance claims. Self-funded plans, $4,000 for town contribution to ICMA for new employees. Finance, $39,301 for retirement of 3 long-term employees. Emergency communications, $14,600 for equipment repairs and overtime due to employee resignation. And finally, public safety, $80,209 for employee retirements and resignations. This is referred to the RTM on May 2nd, 2017 by the Town Council.
Go ahead and move your number.
Mr. Moderator, I move the RTM for approval of referral 2017-0095.
For the amount of $276,195. Is there a second? Motion's been moved and seconded to approve referral 2017-0095, fiscal year ending 2017 fourth quarter transfers. Is there any discussion on this referral? Representative Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just have a question on the way one of them was stated, the emergency communications. What equipment repairs and overtime due to employee resignation?
I'd like to.
Yeah, it's really
Town manager.
2 separate items. There were equipment repairs to radios and other things that needed to take place during the year that were not anticipated. And the overtime is a result of one of our dispatchers leaving. So we had to provide cover. So they're really 2 separate items. It is a little confusing the way it's written, but it is actually 2 equipment repairs. That's a separate, had nothing to do with an employee leaving. And then the overtime because there was a resignation.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mark, in the legislative history there, it talks about the discussion on using part-time dispatchers to backfill instead of overtime. Did you ever get any information back from Mr. Sastry about that?
That is something that Joe is looking into. As I think some of you are aware, we used to have a contingent of part-time dispatchers years ago and got away from that. It's come up in the last couple of years, and that is something that he is exploring the possibility of doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this referral? Representative Seen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So the way you just explained it, the finance for the retirement of the 3 long-term employees, and then the public safety, the employee retirements and resignations, is that pretty much the same thing, where somebody's retiring and they have benefits all saved? Are both of those same? So for public safety, it's 80,000, and it says employee retirements and resignations. So what is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, when people retire, many times when people retire, they've been here for 20, 25, 30 years, and not in all cases, but in some cases, they've accrued quite a bit of vacation time, and there's 2 options. One, you could just say my last day in work is this day, and then take the rest of your time as vacation. The other is, this is my last day, and get a payout.
Do you know how many employees that is for the 80,000?
I think it's 4.
For police or public safety,
Yeah,
4 employees.
4.
and then for finance,
3.
it's,
3.
3
3.
for finance.
all right, thank you.
And Mr. Manager, so under resignation, what does the town pay if somebody resigns?
It depends on if, most of the contracts have a provision, if they resign in good standing, they receive a portion of their benefits, of their vacation time.
Wow. Are there any other questions on this referral? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amount of $276,100. Okay. We'll now vote on the amount of $276,195 for referral 2017-0095, fourth quarter transfers. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, 24-0-0. Community development?
No meeting, no report.
Education?
No meeting, no report.
Recreation, Chairman Wilson.
No meeting, no report.
Public Safety, Chairman McDermott.
No meeting, no report.
Public Works, Chairman Dean Shinbrough. Rules and Procedures, Chairman Massett.
No meeting, no report.
Next item is budget discussions. However, in lieu of that, Superintendent, did you missed your spot? Is there anything you want to come up and say?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I apologize. I was at the Cutler Middle School promotion ceremony, and getting out of that parking lot is a challenge, I can assure you. But I did want to point out a few things since I was here last. One of them is that, as you know, we were in the process of trying to close down Pleasant Valley School. That process has been completed. It was actually completed within about 20 days. We had a committee. We reassigned, we asked the children's families if they would like to go to one of the our two magnet schools, Catherine Kolnowski or Northeast Academy, and about 55 students were selected in the lottery. Other children were part of that lottery, but 55 were selected. So that left about approximately 240 students that needed to be placed. And so by neighborhood, most of those students, about 150 of them were placed at Charles Barnum School, where we actually added one grade one class per grade. And then another 35 or so went to SB Butler by neighborhood, so we can facilitate the transportation. And another 50 or so went to Mary Morrison School. So not only are the children all set, the families have been notified. We've actually had activities at each of the schools to welcome the children into the school. And they've been integrated into next year's classes. That's to say, we're not just taking a whole former Pleasant Valley class. We're actually spreading the children out. Somewhat amazingly, we had 18 classroom teachers, and not a single classroom teacher was laid off. Although we cut the FTEs, and I owe Representative Kent an answer to his email, we are in the process of trying to figure out where everyone's going. I want to give you a final count, but we cut 18 FTEs, so it's a little bit it's a little tricky to understand. We didn't lay anybody off, but we cut 18 positions. And the way we did that was the board offered an early retirement incentive, so that we had more than 18 people retire. Actually, we had 31. And so we were able to take those retirements and take the teacher and put the teacher in there. So while we were cutting positions, we were actually saving money. So in the big picture, we saved what I had planned to save about $1.5 million. We did, in fact, save $1.5 million, but we did, in fact, lose 3 administrators. But anyway, that process is settled. As you know, and I am greatly appreciative, we have a budget. The fact that we have a budget now means that we were able to make these final placements, and we cut, in the final analysis, we had to cut $2.8 million. There were a lot of numbers flying around, but that's in fact what was cut. So I have gone through and shared with the board how we're going to do that. Of course, the major part of that is the closing of the elementary school. I did want you to know, and I'll put these notes in to the clerk. We have a diversity group at the high school called More Than Words, and it's a group that's made up of high school students from Fitch, New London, and Ledyard. And they were awarded the 2017 Educational Citizenship Award by the Commissioner of Education. It's a nice group of kids who do a lot of good conflict resolution and anti-bullying work, not only in the high schools but in elementary and middle schools. But the huge news that I suspect you've all heard was that in terms of Groton 2020, we were hoping to have one of the renovated schools be classified as a diversity school. And that would mean that we would get 80% reimbursement instead of 57%, which comes to about $10.5 million. So in the spring of 14, when we were told that Colchester School was out of racial balance, basically the Commissioner of Education directed me to put a plan together to address racial imbalances. So I did, and submitted that plan, which really was Groton 2020, and it was accepted in December. And then in May of 2015, the schools were back in racial balance. But we kept on going with Groton 2020. And then in the winter of 2016, I met with the commissioner and I said, even though we're out of racial balance, we used to, we last year were out of racial balance, and I requested that it be considered that the funding would be given for diversity status. And she asked me, Commissioner Curry asked me, how many schools are out of racial balance right now? And the answer was none. And she dismissed me and dismissed our request. So I was pretty disappointed. So we wouldn't get the $10.5 million. And then the fall came and we passed a referendum. And we were put on the list officially as a renovation project. And when you have a renovation project, you get 57% reimbursement. But about a month ago, almost exactly, I got the fourth letter, which says we're now out of racial balance again. And I tried to call the commissioner, and I couldn't even get a phone call returned. And I took a friend of mine's advice and called Lenny Winkler. And Lenny had a meeting with the commissioner within 3 hours. And so we went up, and I met with the commissioner and basically gave her the same timeline that I just shared with you. And she said, you know, you've done everything we asked you to do, and I'm going to speak to the legislature the next day. The next day, they went to the legislature, the education committee changed our status from a renovation project to a diversity school. So it's official. We picked up the 10.5 million. So what we told the voters, the $184 million project, 84 million would come from the taxpayers, and 100 million would come from the state, and that's officially in. And it's been bonded. I realize that seems a little bizarre with the state of the budget these days, but it's a different, of course, the state doesn't come up with that money itself, it bonds it out. So they have bonded out, I know, $481 million, and I knew we were right at the top of the priority list. Unfortunately, until 3 weeks ago, we would have only gotten 57%, and that would not have worked, and it would have violated what we told the voters. So needless to say, I'm delighted with that. The architect, the specs for the architect have been published, and in about 2 weeks, there will be a closing for those bids. The Permanent School Building Committee will start to interview architects, and I would anticipate certainly by the end of the summer we should have an architect drawing up plans for middle school to be adjacent to the high school. And I think, other than, as some of you know, the Eastern Point concession stand became available. Unfortunately, the couple, the Garcias, who had been running it for a long time, no longer are going to do that. And so it was offered, the bid was offered, and our food service program chose to bid on it, and actually were awarded the bid. And Chairman Watson was terrified that we might make it healthy food, but I wanted to assure everyone we'll still have the fry-later and all the fries and all the stuff that people like from concession stands. And no, actually, just one last thing. Some of you perhaps were there, but Southeastern Connecticut was nominated for a Great Defense Community Award, partly because of the Council of Governments, and partly because of a military superintendent liaison. So we went last week to Subforce Marine, Submarine Museum, and this award was given out. It was really a wonderful distinction for Southeastern Connecticut, and the governor's military liaison, Bob Ross, presented this award, and it was also the anniversary of the Battle of Midway, which happened on June 6th, 75 years ago, and there was this very spry, but it looked like relatively elderly gentleman sitting right in front of me, getting up and down and handling everything, and it turns out he was there. He was one of the sailors at the Battle of Midway, and it was really quite remarkable. So it was, what's today, Wednesday? The kids would know this. Tomorrow's the last day of school, and Friday is the last day for staff members, and but who's counting? And so we will have graduation, weather permitting, on the football field, and looking forward to it. A lot of really wonderful stories. A lot of kids going to all kinds of great opportunities. Everything from Ivy League colleges to the Naval Academy, and it would really be a great night, a great celebration for Groton. So that's all I have, and I actually, for the first time, brought notes for you. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent? Representative Massett?
Dr. Grenier, I heard somewhere where our request for bonding did not even make it out of the Appropriations Committee.
Oh, no, that's not true. We have been approved officially by the Education Committee for diversity school status. What you may have heard is the actual bonding bill gets passed only after the actual state budget is passed. So that's true. So we don't, and of course, we won't get a letter from the state saying you're gonna get $100 million for this project until the state budget passes. It's a different budget, the bonding budget,
Right.
but we won't get it until the state budget passes.
Okay, thank you.
But I must say that First Selectman Rob Simmons pointed out that the state rarely takes this long to pass a budget, including during the War of 1812 when Stonington was being bombarded. They still passed the budget even then. So we have a long way to go to sort of pick up the pace.
Any other questions? Representative Streeter?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dr. Grenier, you mentioned that we're going to start shortly with an architect to start drawing this. Do you think we should wait until we receive what the state is going to give us for money before we start spending money?
Yeah, we will.
So if we start this and the state hypothetically cuts the town of Groton 13%,
right,
and that puts us into another category to maybe possibly rethink the bonding of the schools, but we're spending money. Where is that money coming from if we're going to start an architect with drawings?
Well, the decision has already been made by the town council to appoint a permanent building committee, and the voters have already approved the 184 million. So my understanding is that the project would move forward, and the state would honor its share.
My understanding with the voters approving the bonding is that if a situation were to arise, that we could back off from that.
Well, the town council could always back off. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
I'm just concerned with
Yeah,
that. If we really get impacted by the
Right.
state government and
Right.
we have to come up with extra money, people are going to reconsider the bonding issue.
Yeah, it's a tricky issue because last year, some of you may know, Ledyard got pushed a year. To get pushed a year costs about $2 million. There's a huge cost to delays with construction, but you still only get 184 million. So if, let's say we pushed it 3 years, you still only get 184 million. So your school is getting smaller and smaller as you go. That's the real problem. And so we're trying to, of course, push this to get going as soon as possible. But at least we have the commitment now for 80% funding. And you're right. If the municipal body chose to not go forward, that's sort of a legal question. I'm probably not the right one to ask because the voters voted for it. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're already planning the staffing. We're already planning the program because it will create an international baccalaureate campus that I think is going to have Groton the envy of the state. There is no place in the state of Connecticut that has anything like that.
So, Dr. Grenier, we've been spending money for a year and a half or so, right?
Yes.
On this planning. To Representative Streeter's point, so if something does happen, then the town would have to pick up the cost of what has been spent to date.
Without reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Moderator.
sorry, I said Baker, not Bailey. Sorry.
Oh, his hand was up before I am, so take him first.
No, ma'am, you please.
Okay, thank you, sorry. This is just a question. When the whole, thank you, Mr. Moderator, by the way. When the business came up about building the school, I live in the Mystic side over here, and of course a lot of my constituents come this way down Fort Hill to go shopping and that type of thing, and they were very concerned about the emptying of the parking lots and the people coming out of the school onto Fort Hill.
Right.
So how is that going to be handled with?
Well, I know there are some initial plans that the Department of Transportation has already approved. But one of the things that we are pursuing, as you may know, that essentially they're building a brand new Grassotech. It's a huge project, a $138 million project. And there is a really interesting possibility, because that's a very big driveway that they have, that, and apparently they need to move a fair amount of soil. And we would need a fair amount of soil. So we are actively pursuing the notion that the entrance and exit could actually come from that place, which I think would greatly relieve the traffic. But again, it's not a high school with all these cars of high school kids and so forth. The entrance would exclusively be for the middle school and at dismissal time for parents and buses, of course.
You still have parents and buses, and a snow day with that hill covered with snow.
Yeah. Well, that's partly why we would frankly, although it was approved, I think there are probably some better alternatives we'd like to pursue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Grenier, we don't have a site plan quite yet for that.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So we haven't even gotten to that point. I think when we do, we'll have the chance to comment on the site plan. And that'd be a good time to talk about that. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Grenier, I have it's a different type of a question. It's a little bit off the subject right now, but since you're over here, I have a friend who wishes to remain anonymous that lives in another town in Connecticut, and concerning graduation, the graduation uniform, certain students are offered to receive cords or stalls, and
I know very well what you're talking about.
Okay, I was just wondering what your input is on that.
Well, we have students. What Representative Bailey is referring to, there was an issue that arose in Ledyard where the students, we give students honor cords. They win them for various academic subjects, world languages and literature and so forth. And I don't fully. I know the incident. I know the issue. I don't fully understand. But apparently, this is what I think the issue is. Students sometimes like to put various paraphernalia on their cap and gown, and they, you could use your imagination what might show up on someone's cap and gown. So I know what the school administration said was, caps, gowns, and cords that are issued. And there were some students apparently who were issued cords from the military services that they are going to represent. The compromise that I understood was they were acknowledging all these students at graduation. They were going to be acknowledged by the service that they were entering. I don't really know the details of it. I think it's sort of spun out of control a little bit, unfortunately. But I meant to say that I knew about the incident. I really don't. What I will say is, I know, as you know, I was a superintendent there for 11 years, and I know the principal, and I respect her enormously. And I think there seems to be a reasonable resolution with the students. But I think, like with a lot of things, social media took off with this. And whenever social media gets involved, sometimes things really spin out of control. But I think it's resolved. They'll have their graduation I think it's next Tuesday night, and I'm sure it will go well. And kids are going to represent their country, and they're in great shape.
Mr. Grenier, how about or Groton's policy?
I think we have the same policy. If you come to graduation, you'll see students have various colored cords, and they all designate something. And I think the idea is that we want to. It hasn't come up, so that's I think the honest answer. But every student who has a cord, and some students have multiple cords, they all stand for advanced placement courses, and they're sort of academic distinctions, like the cap and gown. I think that's the, but frankly, I'd have to talk to the high school principal. They only have until Friday night to figure out what mischief they're going to be up to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grenier. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Representative Baylor. Dr. Grenier, one last question. The 80% reimbursement you talked about was diversity school, right?
Diversity school, just for one school.
Just for one school.
Just for the Cutler renovation.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any other questions for the superintendent? Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you letting me hop in here.
No problem at all. So under item K, there's budget discussions. I trust nobody's got any budget discussions for tonight, right? Seeing none, we'll move on. Other business. I just wanted to let everybody know, remind everybody that there'll be an ordinance coming through shortly. The town council is going to probably pass that will combine the planning and zoning departments into one and basically get rid of the zoning department committee. And as the RTM, we have the opportunity to veto that since it's a legislative ordinance within 45 days, should we so desire. So be on the lookout for that. Representative Wilson. Hang on one second. And just to remind everybody, Tuesday, June 20th, this coming Tuesday at 7:30 at the Town Hall Annex, there'll be a public hearing on this change of basically eliminating the zoning. I don't know, Mr. Manager, do you want to say anything in addition to that, or?
Sure. We're talking about creating a combined planning and zoning commission. And the mechanism is to get rid of or eliminate, the proposal is to eliminate the zoning commission and take our existing planning commission and turn it into planning and zoning commission. Combined planning and zoning commissions are pretty much the norm throughout the state. And I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong. This item has been talked about for a number of years. As you know, we've been revamping our regulations and looking at our procedures by which we try to guide development, and this was one of the recommendations that had been presented a while back. It's not a reflection on either existing commission, one way or the other, or their memberships. Right now, the proposed ordinance calls for a 7-member combined planning and zoning commission. Both commissions right now are 5 members with alternates. So there will be an opportunity if they stick with the 7, to add some folks to the planning commission. There may be some folks on the planning commission that maybe aren't interested in being on a combined planning and zoning commission. But this is all being done in an effort to kind of streamline and make our development process a little bit more, or hopefully a lot more efficient and effective, and more timely decisions being made. So the public hearing, as the moderator noted, is next Tuesday. It's a special town council meeting. They will probably deliberate on this at some time in July at one of their committee of the whole meetings, either on the 11th or the 18th. If the council ultimately approves it, as the moderator noted, it would be referred to the RTM for your consideration.
We can either act on it or not act on it. Representative Massett.
Mark, if I'm not mistaken, this is your last meeting with us?
Is that true, Mr. Manager?
Ask town manager.
I don't know, unless you're going to have some special meetings. This is probably my last meeting as town manager before the RTM. My relief is scheduled to be in town on July 5th. I will overlap with him for around a week or so. So my last day in the office at this point in time is July 11th, which is just before your next RTM meeting. That's not the reason why the date was selected. The council, I think, wanted me to stay on a little bit longer, but as some of you may recall, I gave my notice back in December. I had identified, I believe it was March 10th as my last day. That then got pushed back to the beginning of June, and then more recently to the 11th. And the only reason you may be thinking the 11th, that's a Tuesday, that's a strange day to say that's your last day in the office, but we have plans the next day, so that's why that date was selected.
Well, Mark, if you can remember that far back, I was the person who nominated you for your position as town manager. So I kind of feel like I have a special privilege given to me to say thank you. Thank you for a job well done. Thank you for your patience. And we all, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I think I will. We all appreciate.
She looked at you, Jim. I noticed that.
We appreciate what you have done for us and know how hard you have worked. So thank you and enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Moderator, if I could, thank you very much. You know, I do need to thank, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some type of an event at some point. But I do want to thank the RTM, each and every one of you, for those who are not here this evening, but also, you know, over the last 15 years. I've had the privilege of being the manager for 15 years. I think Groton's been very fortunate, in my opinion, that you've had 3 managers. Your last 3 managers have served almost a total of 45 or 40 years. That is not the norm. Managers sometimes have very short tenures of 2 and 3 years. And so, you know, I know change is difficult. I can tell you it's going to be very difficult for me. I have very, very mixed feelings about not so much retiring, but leaving Groton. This is, I came to Groton when I was 25 years old, 1978. I really thought I'd be here 2 or 3 years at the time. I started in the planning department. I had great, over the years, I've had great mentors, people to look up to, and learned a lot from my first boss here, Dick Gulick, Dick Foote, Ron LeBlanc. I've had great department heads to work with. I've had great councils to work with, individuals and collectively great RTMs. But I do want to thank the RTM. You folks put in, you have a very difficult job. While you generally only meet once a month, you have an incredibly important job in May to review the budget, and you put in unbelievable hours doing that. And so I do want to thank the RTM, not only you present, but all the other members over the years for your hard work and service. And personally, I want to thank you in particular, for your support. We maybe don't always agree or have the same philosophy, but it doesn't really matter what I think ultimately. I'm simply looking for a seat at the table to be able to do my professional job, but ultimately it's up to the council and up to the RTM to make the decisions. And I hope you allow the next manager, and I'm sure you will, to that opportunity. But I do want to thank you for your support, patience, understanding during my tenure. I think Groton has changed a lot in the last 15 years. Certainly Groton has changed a lot since 1978. And I look back over the last couple of years at, you know, at the various projects, and they kind of, at the time, they seem like, oh my God, how are we ever going to get this done? And I'm sure I've missed some, but the phase 1 of the school project, that in and of itself was, if that's all that got accomplished during a manager's tenure, that would be something he or she, I think, would be very proud of. But we didn't stop there. We got Thames Street done. We did something different with respect to road paving and maintenance, where we issued bonds so that the city, the town, and Groton Long Point kind of knew what was going to be available over a multi-year period, which I think has been very helpful. Senior Center, we take it for granted, but the Senior Center was totally reinvented and reconstructed. Animal shelter, which seemed like we were never going to come to a conclusion on that. The water pollution control facility, not very sexy project, but if we want to do economic development, you need sewers. And you need a good water supply, and I think we have an excellent partner with Groton Utilities and Aquarian, and now Eversource, who's recently announced that they're going to be buying Aquarian. And lastly, you know, the 2020 project. I'm sad that I'm not going to be here. I'll be in the community, but I won't be town manager to help move that project along. But that's a long-term project. In part, not a huge part, but that was one of the reasons why I decided there's never a good time to step away, but I'm thinking, okay, you know, we probably need to have somebody here that can see that project through its entirety. We've improved our bond rating over the years. The next item is a little bit bittersweet, in that, you know, town operations has, and with all due respect, has taken a beating over the last couple of years from a budget standpoint. But I think for the most part, we're still getting the job done. Things are getting a little dog-eared. We're not doing maintenance the way we should, and I won't take you through what I've put in the last couple of budgets towards the end about what I think the council and the RTM should be doing in the off-season in terms of setting priorities. But I'll remind you of that. But over my tenure, and it certainly isn't just me, it's just a reference point, you know, town operations has grown on average less than 1% per year. Our workforce is 16% less than it was 15 years ago. I think we're working smarter, we're probably working harder, but there are some things that are not getting done, that we can't continue to operate this way forever. And so hopefully the economy does improve continue to improve in the very near future. It certainly has improved, but we may not be seeing it from a municipal government standpoint, and certainly the chaos in Hartford is not helpful. The uncertainty is not helpful. But having said all that, I truly do want to thank you all for your patience and understanding and support. It's meant a lot to me.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Town Clerk.
Oh, yes, this is a fun thing to talk about, the July 4th parade, where the town manager will be the Grand Marshal. So as a tribute to him, I hope that if you cannot come, at least send someone as a surrogate, but all of the RTM should come out. It's a shortened route. Unfortunately, Mr. Manager, we had hoped it was longer, but it starts at South Road, Fort Hill Road, and then continues down Fort Hill to Long Hill to Drozdek Drive, the shopping center there. So get in touch with me, send me an email, call me to let me know. So there's a deadline coming up to sign up. So Jerry Larkin, the administrator from Parks and Rec, can plan for all of you. So would be a nice tribute. And it's fun. The Grand Marshal.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I just thank you, Betsy, for noting that, and that is a tremendous honor. But I think there's been some confusion on the route. This came up at the department heads meeting the other day, and in following up on it, there were, in fact, letters that went out back in April that indicated that the route would be it would be starting at Pequannock Plains Park, and I've had a couple of discussions with the Parks and Rec department about that, and I believe that's where it is actually going to start.
Okay, so I'll disregard the email from today.
We'll clarify it for everybody that there just seemed to be a glitch.
Thank you, Mr.
Good,
Manager.
then it would start from Pequannock Plains Park.
Correct.
Much better organization from there.
And that's better because it's a huge.
Representative Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I actually have three things. First, going back to the ordinance that we will be considering, just something for you and the town clerk to be working on so we have a really good answer, is reading Robert's rules on 2/3 votes, as well as our own rules in the charter. It's 2/3 total membership, which if we had had something tonight that needed 2/3 total membership, we wouldn't be able to vote on.
It's for ordinances, 2/3 for ordinances.
Right, so to get the rest of the members here that night would be extremely important. The second thing is, even though it's almost over with, flags are coming down, today is Flag Day, please don't just wait until today just to fly a flag, fly our flag every day, and do it by the flag code, light it at night and so forth, take it down when it's ratty. Don't do like one of the hamburger joints on Route 12 and drag the flag out to the flagpole on the ground. Oh, I almost ran over him. Try to put the flag up while it's laying on the ground and that sort of stuff, but please don't do that. And lastly, if you haven't, as a plug to the town clerk and the town office, register your pets. They're due July 1st.
Just dogs.
Just dogs. Oh, I'm not going to say spayed and neutered, but get your licenses before the 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wilson.
Just to reiterate that the 2/3 of the 41 members is 28 members. And dog licensing is the month of June, so June 30th is the last day. Any day after June 30th, every month, it's a $1 assessment for a late fee. So you will need to show proof of rabies and if the dog's been altered for reduction in fee. Cash or personal check?
Anybody have anything else? Representative Park? A motion's been moved and seconded to adjourn?
No.
You gotta.
Oh, I'm sorry. Representative McDermott?
I'd like to discuss the upcoming budget for a moment.
Okay.
We're going to have a new town manager. We've got a new mayor over in the city who I've spoken with at length. We had a rather contentious session. We managed to get together with the town council perhaps a little more than usual. I think that I would like to see the moderator put together a small group of us to explore a way that perhaps we can delve into some of these contentious issues before they come up before us. I know our purview is really just to pass on the budget, but I think, as Mark said, things are getting a little tight here, and I think we need some more cooperation and coordination amongst all of the bodies in town to see if we can reach a resolution of some of these things, or at least find a way to approach them better than what we have, so that when we do come down to the actual budget crunch, we can make some better informed decisions, perhaps some decisions that are a little bit more expedited. Anyway, that's a suggestion that I have, and some other folks here have made the same comments to me. So,
maybe you
excellent
could take that under advisement.
No, it's an excellent recommendation, Representative McDermott. And I would let everybody know, we always get to the budget season, and, we've let a whole year go by and didn't make any progress on some of the things that we felt should be done. And we get around to budget season and go, budget season is not the time to zero out people's budgets because we didn't do the work throughout the rest of the year to get a consensus to make that change. So I would say, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I just remind people, starting now, we have a whole year. Let's think about the stuff that we want to see done, things we want to see changed. Let's start moving in that direction and start talking to other people and getting people together and having discussions. Representative Kent.
Pardon my boarding house reach. I would like to make a motion that we task the incoming, the new town manager to come up with an analysis to transition new town employees to a defined contribution retirement plan instead of the current defined benefit plan.
Wasn't the
That's a policy issue. We don't
they've already
have
started doing that, haven't they?
the power of initiative to ask that council.
So that's-
Yes, we can do that. You can use the power of initiative to ask council to do it.
The council's already doing it.
Okay.
Right now, I believe the council is already doing that. And I will check into that, if the council is not doing that, then the next meeting, we will use the power of initiative to put that in front of the council. But I believe that's already being looked at. And I will check into that and make sure. Representative Streeter?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a question. I think maybe the town clerk can answer this. And I agree with some of the comments about doing some homework before we go into next year's budget. However, if the charter revision is approved by the town council and then goes to the voters in November, and if it is approved and what they're saying is to do away with the RTM, will we have an RTM to look at this? When will that become effective? If it goes the way that they're thinking and the voters approve it in November, when would that become effective?
I don't have an answer to that, but I am attending the Charter Revision Commission meetings. They're working very hard, and they're open to public. Anybody can watch or even contribute. I suspect that August is their deadline, that they may need an extension, possibly, and I don't believe that they could possibly get this, the way they're going, that they could get this on the ballot. We really aren't moving as quickly as they hoped that they would, but that's just the nature of it. It's difficult and a lot of personalities. You put 9 people together, where you can, so yeah, saying that, let's just say if it were to be approved by the council and the referendum also approved the changes, you couldn't have an election of RTM in November and say that's null and void. You'd be elected, and so it would have to be sunset the RTM after their 2-year term. So you could essentially say you're going to have another 2-year term for RTM.
More to come. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Parker and Wilson.
And motion is moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.